Right, folks. Pack your bonios. We're heading over the mountain and we're going to Ramsey. The Isle of Man is an island right bang in the middle of the Irish Sea, between the UK and Ireland. Ramsey is on the northeast of the island. Welcome to Ramsey, or Falt Ort in Manx Gaelic. Can you smell garlic? Ramsey is Old Norse for Wild Garlic River. But there's been a fair few changes since Viking times. Ramsey is now the largest town on the Isle of Man. It used to be the second largest town after the island's capital, but as Douglas was officially declared a city in 2024, that now makes Ramsey the largest town on the island. Ramsey is also the sunniest town on the island. Back to those geography lessons. Remember the term rain shadow? Well, the island's prevailing winds tend to be southwesterly, and when those moisture-loaded gusts and gales hit the hills of the island, we tend to get the rain there. Once those winds reach Ramsey and the northern plains, the rain and clouds have sometimes been left behind. What a stunning location. The northern hills form Ramsey's dramatic backdrop, with the sea at centre stage. Oh, and there's also miles of beaches. But talking of the hills and back to the Vikings, Skye Hill, just a couple of miles away from Ramsey, was the site of a monumental battle which would change Manx history to such a degree that its effects are still felt today. The outcome of the Battle of Skye Hill was 200 years of Viking rule. The Vikings formed our Manx Parliament in 979, and Tynwald, the Isle of Man's Parliament, is still going today. Ramsey has always been an important and strategic port, given its close proximity to both Scotland and England. Robert the Bruce was another visitor that disembarked at Ramsey in 1313, but he wasn't here to take in the spectacular northern views. Nope, he was heading south to Castle Rushen. It was that siege there that threw the Isle of Man back into Scottish rule, for a short while anyway. We'd previously been sold to Scotland by the King of Norway in 1266, and for some years, then and afterwards, there was a bit of a tug of war between the Scottish and the English. They all wanted a piece of our pie. On the subject of pies, Ramsey has some cracking cafes, restaurants and pubs. I don't think Queen Victoria had much of an appetite when her and Albert stopped off in Ramsey. The Irish Sea can sometimes be a rough crossing, and that was something Queen Vicky quickly found out. The royal yacht had to do a stopover while the Queen recovered. In the meantime, Prince Albert grabbed the opportunity for a good walk up into the hills. A year later, in 1847, Albert Tower was built to mark the spot Albert stopped to take in the views. almost 100 years later, it was used as a lookout tower during the Second World War. 30 boarding houses on Ramsey promenade were also taken over and turned into Mooragh Internment Camp. The barbed wire fencing went up in May 1940, and under heavy guard, the first interns arrived, over 800 men. These first interns were mostly German and Austrians. Many had lived in Britain a number of years and were religious or political refugees fleeing Nazi persecution. But once war started, they had to register as enemy aliens, which must have been deeply unsettling. An article in the Isle of Man Courier in May 1940 came with the headline, "The first batch of aliens arrive." This was before the 1950s sci-fi blockbusters latched onto the word alien, when it became synonymous with extraterrestrials. Huge crowds of people silently watched the interns' arrival. Some of the arrivals were whistling "It's a happy day," which was a hit in 1940, a panacea for the horrors of war. This is the iron pier from which they disembarked, Queen's Pier, built in 1886. A tramway powered by hand using a hand crank transported cargo and baggage for the first 50 or so years. This was eventually replaced by a locomotive. By 1990, a whole century of weather and tides had taken its toll and the pier was closed. But thanks to the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust, that's not the end of the story. In 2017, this community project launched to restore this Ramsey's treasure back to its former glory. It's an ongoing, massive task with a team of passionate and determined volunteers. Now, let's head 3 miles out from Queen's Pier and roll yourself back through the decades to the swinging 1960s and tune in to pirate radio. Radio Caroline North was anchored in Ramsey Bay from 1964 to 1968. Before Radio Caroline came along, the BBC dominated the airwaves and only allocated 1 hour a week to popular music. And this during the peak of Beatlemania. Radio Caroline North delivered the iconic hits of the day, all day and every day, with around 4 million listeners across northwest Britain and Ireland. Boats from Ramsey regularly delivered vital provisions, plus regular special guests, some big stars amongst them. I wonder if the family at this house just up the road ever tuned their transistor to Radio Caroline. I might be wrong, but I don't think it would have been their cup of tea. This is the Grove, home for almost a century for 2 sisters, Alice and Janet Gibb. They grew up and grew old here, but the house stayed the same, lovingly preserved and maintained. In 1976, it became a museum. The Grove Museum is a fascinating time capsule of Victorian life, both inside and out. The sisters were enthusiastic beekeepers. Check out this fascinating viewing corridor for bees. And some of the old beehives as well out on display. These are skeps. A skep is a traditional hive made from straw. Let's follow that bee there. Those flowers in Mooragh Park are pollen-tastic. She's right. Mooragh Park, just next to Ramsey Promenade, is a stunning place with a 12-acre boating lake at its heart. There's also tennis courts, children's play area, bowling green, crazy golf, BMX track, and also a cafe where you can sip in the view. Suitably replenished, if you fancy a bit of shopping, head over to Parliament Street and say hello to King Godred Crovan, aka King Orry, and chief instigator of that battle at Skye Hill we mentioned earlier. This is his son, King Olaf, during whose reign the island experienced relative calm. From Viking sea warriors to road warriors. Ramsey is also on the world-famous TT course. Often labelled as the greatest motorcycle race on earth. And when the sun sets over the hills of this sunniest part of the island, head to Mooragh Promenade, where the internment camp used to be, and now one of the British Isles' dark sky sites. Gaze at the night sky, at the constellations the Vikings followed to discover this island, and immerse yourself in lights from stars that have taken thousands of years to reach us.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Right, we're off to take a ski at another part of the island. Come and join us.